The Baltimore Ravens pick up their third straight victory. It's looking pretty good for the Ravens as they're currently 4-5. What this can mean for the team moving forward.
I'm Kadra Ismail, and here's what it means. They get one more game against the Cleveland Browns to get back to 500, and we can start talking the P word, playoffs.
And the Baltimore Ravens, we saw a lot of good things in this game against the Vikings and also some things that they can continue to improve on, but you'd rather improve on it after a win than after a loss. I'm Kevin Oestreicher, the host of Locked On Ravens. We have a lot coming your way on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show.
Rise and shine. It's the Ravens Squad. Everything Baltimore Ravens every week. Covering all the big hits and game-changing plays from the heart of Charm City. The way only the Locked On Podcast Network can. Flock together and squad up. The Ravens Squad Show starts now.
Welcome to another episode of the Locked On Ravens Squad Show post-game edition. This is Sam and Joker, joined as always with Kevin Oestreicher and Kadra Ismail. This is really good. I feel great. The Ravens picked up their third straight victory after having not won a game since that Browns game. Didn't feel like the Ravens were ever going to get a chance to win in the game. And now they go back to Cleveland to potentially go to 500. Huge thing to talk about in this contest because the Ravens do, in fact, pick up the victory against the Minnesota Vikings. I believe the Lamar Jackson-led Ravens are now 14-1 when Lamar Jackson is in the game against NFC foes on the road. So this is a huge victory. Another notch in the belt for Lamar Jackson in his what we believe to be a Hall of Fame career. Excited for everybody here to join us. I want to let you know that today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. This episode, we're going to be talking about the Ravens' big-time win against those Minnesota Vikings. We'll talk about how the defense in particular responded after that tough start to start the season, and we'll talk about where the Ravens stack up with the rest of the AFC because there were some big-time losses in the AFC and some teams that haven't shown very much of anything so far in 2025. The Ravens were one of them, but they've brought together some wins. But first, let's get into the weeds of this victory. The Ravens do, in fact, pick up the win over the Minnesota Vikings. Looked like it was going to run away with it. They kind of lost it a little bit with the momentum, but held true to form and got that victory. Kevin, what are your thoughts about this big-time win against the Minnesota Vikings?
Yeah, it got a little more dicey at the end than I thought it would. And, some of that had to do with a Roquan Smith interception that wasn't, but really was, as well as a couple of other things. But I'll tell you what, felt like after a really slow start in the first quarter, and I mean, really slow start, Baltimore, right at the end of that first half, when Minnesota allowed them to kind of crawl back in and get points, weird time management and play call situation. From that point on, up until maybe like midway-ish, a little more than midway through the fourth quarter, Baltimore seemed to take control of the game and have all the momentum on their side. And, Lamar Jackson wasn't like his most spectacular game ever or anything like that, but I think in moments he found spots to deliver, especially to Zay Flowers. We saw him with multiple big conversions. I liked what we saw later in the game from the Ravens on the ground. I liked when they gave the ball to Keaton Mitchell, but they didn't do it enough, in my opinion. They kind of saw him do something good, and then all of a sudden said, we don't really want to do this anymore. Why should we do it anymore after he had all the success, which I think, is not a formula for success. But, I thought that Derrick Henry, while he struggled early, he did get things going later. And I think part of that was that at the end of the game, he just decided to run around the O-line. He's like, you know what? If you clog up the middle, I'm going to just take it to the outside, and I'll really show you what I can do. Because we saw, again, the offensive line continue to be a problem where Daniel Falele missed multiple blocks. He actually got Lamar Jackson hit really hard on one. Maybe, I can't remember if it was him on the other one, but one of them was that roughing the passer, which is kind of like it's textbook body weight foul, but how do you want the defender to kind of play it at that point? You don't really know. There were just multiple times, we saw Linderbaum, we saw Ricard, Voorhees. Like, it just continues to be an issue for them, unfortunately. And there were good plays. There was one play where Roger Rosengard and Isaiah Likely went to the outside and just pushed guys all the way back into the third. So it's not like every single play is bad, but the Ravens won this game because of two things. They won this game, one, because they forced turnovers. Should have had another one because of Roquan, but they still forced, the J.J. McCarthy rookie mistake interceptions, those arm punts, as we love to say with Josh Allen. J.J. McCarthy threw a couple of them up there. Malachi came down with the second interception. Marlon came down with the other one, as well as Keandre Jackson, the Ravens' newest special teams ace, getting involved on two perfectly placed Tyler Loop kickoffs back to back. And it was funny. I was doing the watch along, and that second kickoff happened, and I said, wouldn't it be so funny if it was in the exact same place? And I said, that kickoff's in the exact same place. Hopefully it's the exact same result. And then the guy fumbles again. I'm like, wait. But again, it's like getting the ball on the ground, forcing those turnovers is absolutely massive. And the other reason they won is because Minnesota just loved playing on 1st and 15 in this game. It was just false start after false start after false start, 13 penalties for Minnesota in this game. Hugh, I don't know if you were ever part of a game where it just felt like you on the offensive side of the ball couldn't get anything going because penalties just kept killing your momentum and you kept going back and back and back, or it felt like those penalties were hurting your momentum. But I'll tell you what, Minnesota, every chance in the book they had to commit a false start felt like they were doing it, and that certainly helped the Ravens too. The Ravens played a very clean game compared to what Minnesota did.
You know what? To piggyback off that excellent breakdown, I think one thing that really stood out to me was the resilience of this team. They didn't start off fast, but they did something that really put them in the hole of a 1-5 start to begin with. They finished. This game was about finishing. This game was about that second quarter gaining momentum and then going into the third and fourth quarter and finishing off the game. You're going to have, 10-9 score. You're like, okay, what are we doing here? You talk about that opening drive and the big play catch Naylor had in the slot off of Marlon, and you are thinking like, oh boy, this is going to be a long day. But then you see the resilience of Marlon Humphrey. You see the resilience of the defense. I think offensively, yeah, they hardly had any first downs, but they wound up with 23 on the day, 23 first downs, and the majority of that is second half first downs. That's dominating. That's saying to your opponent, we're going to impose our will on you. We know that going up to Minnesota US Bank Stadium, excuse me, if you put any team in there, it is incredibly difficult to hear, incredibly difficult to play. But the Ravens, only one false start. That was it. And Voorhees and Lamar gave him a little side eye. So that's going to be interesting to see what is going to happen in that regards. But yeah, like 8 for the Vikings at home, 8. And I don't remember, Kevin, having a scenario like that. I am grateful that we didn't. Actually, I do remember one, but we will not talk about that. It was just one drive, and we got out of it. We got a first down, but it was all my fault. So there's that. But that being said, the entire game was a game of resilience. You need to have games like that when you go on the road, when you're not having things go your way, and it's a gut check time. You need to have the Kyle Hamiltons of the world still doing what he's doing and inspiring his other guys. And then all of a sudden you see guys starting to pick the ball off. How many pass defense? 4 knockdown, ball batted down or whatever. I mean, that's incredible.
Yeah.
2 by him, 2 by our interior D lineman, where you were like, okay, what are we going to do with our interior D line? I do give credit to Draymond Jones. He did his awesome impersonation. What was it, 11 pressure or 11 QB hits that I guess they recorded, but he did his great Adafe almost impersonation. I mean, he was relentless. And I say that jokingly because Adafe should have had some sacks. But I say that in this game, at least these were pressures that caused JJ to not have completions. So there's a difference. So overall, I would say it's a resilient game. I love the fact that, the tight ends, they started off slow, but they had their redemption moments. You talk about Derrick Henry. I don't know it's necessarily him starting slow, but more along the line of the offensive line just not getting into a good rhythm, him going to the sideline, figuring it out, and then him saying, okay, I'm going to do it on my own. And I do give Pancake Pat some love in that regards because since he's been back, I think we've seen where you might not get Rosengarten, might not get Faalele to do the job that needs to be done, but you do at least have Pancake Pat And then that gives the opportunity for Derrick Henry to get up the field. I saw on the one run in particular, it was an 8-yard run, phenomenal 8-yard run. But it was just Derrick Henry being able to be patient and get up because he had a good, strong lead block. At the same time, you look at the way special teams played, Jackson with his punch out, like you said, KO, and that was timely. I know short fields helps your offense, and special teams as well as defense helped out the Ravens offense. Took them a while to get going, but they did get going and finished the game.
Certainly did take them a while to get going. Defense played phenomenal. We'll get into that in the second segment of the show. But before we get into that, let's talk about that slow start, because I believe the offense struggled a little bit. Lots of drops from the tight ends in the first couple of drives. Really stalled the way that things were going for the Ravens. Lamar Jackson didn't even eclipse 200 yards in a day. Some of that has to do with the performance of the offense in the first half. Offensive line struggled again. We could talk about this every single week. Just plug in a clip and just, you wouldn't know what game we're talking about because it's been the same thing over and over. I think there's a clip of Daniel Falele actually getting blocked into the screenplay. He's on the right side. They're trying to take the play away from him and give, Derrick Henry a chance on the screen. Didn't work out that way. So lots of things that they could improve upon. Let's start with you, Q. Happy belated birthday to you. Your birthday was a couple of days ago. Actually, it was yesterday, I believe. And today's Daniel Falele's birthday. So you guys are very close in terms of
almost
birthdays.
Almost
Look at that.
Almost birthday twins.
So as the birthday twin almost to Daniel Falele, what would be your assessment of the offensive line, most notably Daniel Falele? Had to get that shot in there, Q. Sorry.
You had to say it. Had to say it. I know that he's a fellow Scorpio, and thank goodness he ain't on November 8th. It's November 9th for him. But I tell you, it's interesting. He is who he is. He's not a very good offensive lineman. He's serviceable. He's got backup qualities to him. He doesn't have that strong punch where he's just going to, overpower you with his massive size. Most offensive linemen, you would say, got heavy hands. He has very, I'm not going to say mediocre, but mediocre hands. And I just thought like that screenplay was a prime example of, here is where your guy, all you got to do is just get your shoulder, that upfield left shoulder in the way and pin him. And he couldn't do that. And then his feet are just so slow that he's making other offensive linemen look amazing. Again, I think Ed Oliver is still like, he's probably on IR, like, I'm going to still make the Pro Bowl off of what he did with Roly Poly. And so I think it is a cause for concern. I know that this league, you're seeing the roller coaster experience. What is the roller coaster experience? You see that when it comes to the Kansas City Chiefs and the Bills, oh, wow, hey, they do what they do. But then they go back against their own division opponent against the Dolphins and they get mud stomped. You look at the way the Pittsburgh Steelers kind of just got drubbed against the Packers at home on a primetime stage. Their defense looked god-awful. They have the Colts come into their place. And then all of a sudden, the Colts look like they've never played above 500 all year long, only to then go out to Germany to play against an Atlanta Falcons team that was whooping up on people. So what are you getting? You look at the way this league is, it's so up and down. That's where, to answer your question, the roly-poly-olies of the world, it gives me some level of hope that, yes, all you need is a chance. And I think on the one hit that was a sack that, was the roughing the passer, that one, I might have been Rosengarten and Falele. I think that teamwork, we'll look back at the replay on that, but it didn't look like it was just solo Falele. But maybe he wanted to give Lamar an early birthday present. Hey, Lamar, you didn't hook me up with what I thought you were going to. So I'm going to let you just have this one right here, brother. Hey, surprise.
Man, what do we think Lamar's gift to the O-line is going to be this year? for Christmas. Yeah.
Nothing.
Think it's some coal's gonna be, gonna get a stocking full of coal. Is that what they're gonna get this year?
For
We
some of
bah
them.
humbug in that thing. Bah humbug. We ain't giving you nothing. You ain't deserving it. You be talking about oh yeah, I gave my old line, some scooters. I gave my old line, some trucks. I gave my old line some Rolex. I gave my Mark. I'm like, yeah. You get your old line. Yeah. Huh. And then he's going deadpan, nothing.
Oh man. I mean, my thing on the O-line is it's the Ravens' duty. It is their job to put the best 5 linemen they have out there to protect Lamar Jackson. We can go on and on about the offseason and the guard position, what they did or didn't do. We've talked about it a ton, the 3 of us. But now you're in it. Like, now you have who you have. Trade deadline's done. You're not going to sign somebody off the street. Like, it is what it is. So now your job is to find the best 5 that you have and put them out there to protect Lamar Jackson. And I just don't think they're doing that. And they're also not going to make a change, in my opinion, when they're winning. Do they need to make a change? Yeah, I think they do. Are they going to make a change? I don't think so. And it does worry me because, and again, it's not all Falele, like you mentioned, Q. That I don't know if Falele was trying to pass off Dallas Turner to Rosengarten and it just kind of slipped it through the middle of I don't know what it was, but every week, like you said, Sam, like we see flip of Falele whiffing on a block or being on the ground or Voorhees being on the ground or past couple Ricard whiffing on blocks, like Linderbaum. Like it's not just Falele, but I just think we've all talked about this. With Falele, his losses are so egregious. Like they're so loud that it's bad. So for Baltimore, they need to make a change, but I don't think they will.
I don't think they will either, but Yamil put it up on the comment section a little earlier. Maybe Emory Jones next week, but he's not even activated for this contest. So that tells you where they think their guards are right now. So we'll just have to hope for the best, as you mentioned, Kevin. Hopefully this guard group can get them through to the finish line, but we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about the offense a little more. We're going to talk about defense, but I just saw some interesting news that I think we need to talk about in terms of where this Ravens team will be going moving forward with a certain athlete. We'll touch on it here next on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. If you're still overpaying for wireless, it's time to say yes to saying no. And Mint Mobile, their favorite word is no. No contracts, no monthly bills, no averages, no hidden fees, no BS. I say yes to making the switch and getting premium wireless for just $15 a month. Mint makes it simple. All plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. You can even bring your own phone and keep your same phone number and contacts. I love that you're getting the same quality service you had before, but for a fraction of the price. Ready to say yes to saying no? Make the switch at mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. That's mintmobile.com/LockedOnNFL. Upfront payment of $45 required, equivalent to $15 per month. Limited time new customer offer for the first 3 months only. Speeds may slow down, 35 gigabytes on unlimited plans. Taxes and fees extra. See Mint Mobile for details. We are back here on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show after a big-time Ravens win over the Minnesota Vikings. Lots and lots of stuff to get to in this episode. Again, we're available twice a week. Talking Ravens football. Our next episode will be Wednesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. And then, of course, the Locked On Ravens podcast with Kevin Oestreicher 5 days a week. Talking all things Ravens, having to watch along even during the game. So lots and lots of Ravens content for you here at the Locked On Ravens Network. Make sure you get your fill with Ravens news and updates throughout the season. The Ravens pick up that win against the Vikings. Wanted to get to a little bit of breaking news. Maybe if you didn't hear about it. I know some people have if you're paying attention to the Ravens. But looked like we saw Rashad Bateman on a boot after the game. Reporters talked to him, said it was a high ankle sprain. Doesn't expect to miss much time, but we know how those high ankle sprains are, Q. You in particular should know about this as a receiver. I want to get your thoughts. Depending on severity, how much time are we looking at here, and how did this offense perform without potentially Rashad Bateman for a few weeks?
So I didn't see that. Good eye, good catch by you. And high ankle sprains are no joke because you're talking about, part of the healing process is getting the nerves and that blood flow down in there with different soft tissue. Not a lot of vasculature going into that portion of your lower extremity. And so the healing can be somewhat tricky. Then you look at his game. His game is predicated on that sudden burst and getting low, getting in and out of his breaks and his cuts. So that is a concern. I think the good news is you have DeAndre Hopkins, you clearly have Wallace, and Tez Walker has been pretty much a no-show, but if he is healthy, then that would be something where you would see Tez kind of jump back into the equation, which would be a good thing. But I think overall for Bate, high ankle sprains. Now he's actually technically going to be going back up on the plane, and you can get some more swelling because of the fact that you're just up in that high altitude and all that. That could delay a little bit of that healing process. But hopefully they have the right modalities to put them or put him in a good position to recover quickly.
Yeah, and you know that Marlon's going to be the first one to go up to Bate with that phone during the IG live, be like, "How you feeling with the walking boot and everything?" Man, I know what's coming. I know what's coming. But for the Ravens and their receiver group, I mean, Q, you mentioned it with who they have available. I know Bateman said himself he's not going to want to miss a lot of time, or he doesn't expect to, but I'm not really sure about that. Especially with what you said there. So, it's tough. And there are a couple of other things going to have to keep in mind too. But, Bateman hasn't really had a very strong season so far. It's been a disappointment for him. And, we know that Zay Flowers has been the target hog so far for Baltimore this season, although Lamar has been spreading the ball out a little bit more this year, especially during the bye or after the bye, after he's come back with guys like Likely and Andrews both getting a decent amount of targets in this game in particular. But they're going to have to figure out life without Bateman. It's not like he has made a huge impact on the field this year, but, teams do have to account for him with his presence and his ability to win off the line very quickly, kind of like what you said, Q, and that's a big part of his game. So hopefully he's able to heal up soon.
I will say this real quickly. You got to give him some grace because Cooper Rush, when he was in those 2 games, I mean, that's valuable stats that you're not able to get back. He just wasn't on the same page. And so just want to put that out there because I'm pro Bateman and I love his game. I love how he plays. It's just shoot. He's probably like, Lamar, when you coming back?
Begging him to come back. I mean, Bateman looked good in this contest. You think he had that dropped touchdown grab, but he also had a great grab that he almost reached the end zone there. Got it to the 1 yard line at one point. So I think he's going to be missed for sure. I think that high ankle sprain, he talked about, I'm not going to miss too much time. I don't trust it. That boot being on your leg tells me a lot. And you mentioned Q, the swelling is a big thing. Could a guy like DeAndre Hopkins step up? I've seen somebody, Z Moore, got on here a few minutes ago and said D-Hop can do it. I think, D-Hop has shown to be able to be that second guy for Lamar. He's had a couple of instances where he's, maybe not been open. He doesn't have the separation that Bateman has, certainly, but to be able to catch the ball whenever it's around your radius, your catch vicinity, is huge for Lamar Jackson, who's starting the game, a little more trust for him. You saw a little more balls thrown D-Hop's way. What are your thoughts, Kevin?
Yeah, I think it's going to be important for D-Hop to step up with, however long Bateman is out for. And, we've seen him in, spot moments this season make big plays, but I still think he has something left. I still think that, while I don't expect him to go out there and get like 10 catches for 100 yards and a touchdown every single game, I think that, like, again, in those big spots, in those big moments, he can make plays. And like they have the guys to survive it. And even if that means more targets do go to the tight ends or you throw to the running backs more, like, or even just Lamar throws to Zay 5 more times. I don't know. Like, they can do that because we know he loves throwing to Zay. But I think D-Hop can make a big impact. I don't know how many snaps they want to give him at this point in his career. I don't think he's going to be like a 95% snap player, even with Bateman out. I think they might want to rotate him in with Tez a little bit, but I think the D-Hop still can make a couple plays for it, like we've seen him do. I mean, he made one today. I mean, there are a lot of plays he can make, and I still think he can make an impact, especially with a bigger role.
Biggest thing, I think, is volume of plays, and you got Tylan Wallace. You got Tez Walker, who I know he had the strain, I believe, in his abdomen. I believe he is back, and so you got 2 young guys and you got a vet, and it's just a matter of how you use your vet to help in those critical situations when you need to make a big play. That's how I look at it.
Yeah, I agree. I think that those a lot of people could step up for sure, including, I mean, Love just mentioned, wow, this guys are just reading my thoughts. Tez Walker, Talon, you mentioned it, Q. These guys can step up and be a big time influence. It's not, the Ravens have weapons. There's one thing the Ravens have is weapons on the outside. Maybe not, Justin Jefferson and Jamar Chase level guys, but definitely guys that belong in the league that can make plays for Lamar, and you give Lamar a chance. He's going to get the ball to you. It's just that offensive line has to get it together. I think it's a good time to get onto the defense here. The defense struggled mightily the first few weeks of the season. We saw it against the Lions. We saw it against the Chiefs. We saw it against, other teams out here across the league. The Texans, even without Lamar Jackson, Texas put up some points against this Ravens defense, and they've turned a corner. This 3-safety look has done wonders for them. The addition of Draymond Jones, we talked about earlier, Q and I, huge. Alohi Gilman has looked like he's been a godsend for this team, even with the trade for Dafe Owe. That stop in the end zone with Justin Jefferson. I know people say it might have been a drop, but no, Alohi Gilman got there just at the split second where that ball reached the hands of Jefferson and made it a little more difficult of a catch for him. How are we going to assess this defense? I know they haven't played the passers that they had early on in the season, but man, they are still stepping up in a big way. I think Kyle Hamilton made a note of that, saying this defense has turned a corner. He made a little jab about their celebrations and whatnot, but overall, I think this defense has come a long way. Maybe not the top tier defense we expected coming into the season, but certainly serviceable enough to make stops in critical moments.
It's interesting. KO, tell me this: when you look at Alohi, the way they do Pro Bowl balloting, like I could see him being like an alternate. Like literally, he's played in that short a period of time.
Sure.
That good of quality of play.
I mean, we saw who made it last year.
Thank you.
We know who made it last year.
And he's playing way better than homeboy. Way better. I think when you look at the defense, Travis Jones and his rest of his crew, defensive front-wise, played admirable. The almost there is going to eventually turn into we got there. And that's what I'm looking to see. But Kyle Hamilton continues to impress at the line of scrimmage, knocking balls down. I know J.J. McCarthy, but J.J. is J.J. in the sense of his alter ego 9. So his alter ego 9 got a taste of what it was for the Ravens defense to get after him. It's about finishing. And I think if this Ravens defense can continue to grow upon, the art of the finish and not give up things late in the game, I think that is what is going to tell the story of the 2025 Ravens defense.
Yeah, and I think that the thing that especially with batting the balls down at the line, I mean, even if you're not getting pressure, find a way to impact the play. I mean, that's something that's really huge, and that's something they've been good at doing for a while. Guys like Brett Urban, Michael Pierce, now John Jenkins getting involved, Travis Jones getting his paw on the ball. Like, those are huge plays. And we saw so many times in this game them do that. And just, look, the pass rush it has been better. It has to continue to get better. And part of it is, I do love the mentality of Zach Orr essentially saying, look, if we're not going to get pressure with 4, we're not going to let you sit back there and pick us apart. We're going to bring the pressure to you and make you make a play. And multiple times we did see J.J. McCarthy step up and make a play. Other times we saw him step up and throw the ball 60 yards down the field for no reason, and the Ravens intercept the ball. So it's like, those are the moments that I think are huge. We saw Draymond Jones with that really cool. I mean, that move was filthy. Like, just running across, getting to the quarterback, forcing McCarthy out of the pocket. Like, that's what they brought him in to do. We saw Travis Jones get some pressure. And I know, it wasn't a high sack number game for Baltimore. I think only Travis had the sack that was credited to him. But outside of that, you still found ways to impact the game. And we saw, again, the way they use Kyle Hamilton, like we talk about, like, it's so impressive. The deception that they use as well. And again, if you just want to, look ahead a little bit to next week, you're going up against another very inexperienced quarterback into the Gabriel. who just hasn't seen a lot of NFL looks before. And it's generally why the Ravens have so much success historically against younger first-year, second-year quarterbacks, is because they present so many unique packages. Now, when you go up against the Mahomes of the world or any of those, like, they've seen it all. So you're not going to have those gotcha moments like you do with those younger players, but it's about stacking. And I think while, again, the Ravens pass rush isn't where it needs to be yet, you do have opportunities over the next probably month, 3 weeks at least, to find your footing even more, because it certainly does look better than we saw earlier in the year.
And that's what it's all about for me. Just looking better than the previous. I thought there was no light at the end of the tunnel with this defense. Looked awful. I mean, they've made some mighty improvements, not only to the scheme, but to the personnel. I mean, you mentioned Draymond Jones coming in. I'd love to see some Aeneas Peoples. I'd love to see that. But, overall, I think this defense is making a step in the right direction. When we come back, we'll touch more on this defense here as we celebrate another big-time win for the Ravens as they look to get to 500 next week against the Cleveland Browns. All this and more next here on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. The episode is brought to you by PrizePicks. You and I make decisions every day, but on PrizePicks, being right can get you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement of this sports season. Whether you're following the NFL, NBA, or both, there's no better time to jump in on the action. If you haven't tried it yet, PrizePicks is the simplest way to play. Just pick more or less on at least 2 player stats. If you get them right, you win. It takes up to 60 seconds to make your lineup, and you can play anywhere PrizePicks operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. I've been using PrizePicks during both football Sundays and NBA tip-offs. It keeps every game exciting. Plus, if one of your players leaves early with an injury, the injury reboot saves my lineup from a loss. That's huge for a lot of people out there because you don't get the injury reboot everywhere. So download the PrizePicks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks, it's good to be right. We're back here in the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. Big time Ravens win a day after Qadri Ismail's birthday. Happy belated birthday again to
Happy
Q.
belated birthday.
Big time. Making it over here still.
Birthday
for the
dubs.
Exact. Birthday dubs are the best dubs. I'm
Q
telling you.
and Daniel Falele.
Exactly. More so for Q than Daniel Falele. Kevin can help himself. That's hilarious. But we continue talking Ravens football here. Talk more about this defense because, again, I've been critical of Zachary Orr. We've all been critical of Zachary Orr in this defense. Now, guys needing to step up. They have stepped up in a big way. That meant trading away guys that we loved, like Jay Alexander, guys that we thought would step up, like Odafe Owe, but they're bringing guys like Alohi Gilman, Draymond Jones, and it looks like they're starting to come into form as the season progresses, and they need to get it because big wins are on the horizon for this team if they're able to get it done on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball. Kevin, you got a little bit of taste of Draymond Jones and what he's able to do for this edge room. It looked like it helped out not only this defense, but Mike Green in general. It looks like he had some more get up, got to the quarterback a little more effectively. How would you assess Draymond Jones in his first start, not having watched any All-22 film, but it looked like he looked pretty good out there?
Yeah, talked about how he had that move that forced JJ out of the pocket on that one play. I thought he was involved in the run game early as well. I am curious to see how many snaps he played, because I know they're still trying to work him into the defense and everything. But, I mean, I thought he was solid overall. Nothing too crazy, but nothing, terrible either. He didn't actually register on the stat sheet in terms of a tackle, but he did have 2 quarterback hits. And that, to me, is, find a way to impact the game. And he did that. I think that, again, the versatility, we'll see him unlocked there a little bit more as he continues to get more acclimated with the defense. So, solid yet unspectacular debut, and not in a bad way unspectacular. Just, was kind of involved on some plays, got to the quarterback, but, I'm excited to see how he progresses. And you know what? They're 1-0 in the Draymond Jones era. So, maybe he was the missing piece all along. Who knows? So you got to just kind of rock out with that and hope that he can continue to improve. But I thought a solid start for him.
Interesting because the total was 11 quarterback hits. So I think the fact that I'm combining Mike Green and Draymond together to form the Voltron. Oh, man, I think the biggest thing that you see with this group with Draymond Jones in there there is a different type of energy, like a uptick of like, hey, we're going to get to the quarterback. I just get that sense, it's a different type of energy. I will also say that bigger picture wise, when there's certain energy in the locker room, you get rid of said energy, I think it helps out the locker room. So with that, I think there is something to be said about no longer having Jair Alexander, who had a strong personality, no longer in the locker room. And you see a guy like a Draymond Jones who, just listening to on a couple of the other local Ravens podcasts in our area. I like his demeanor, I like his style, I like his way about him. So he was having a good strong start to begin with his time at the Titans. So I think this is perfect opportunity for him to continue and be a part of what Zach Orr's defense is trying to accomplish, which is that nameless, faceless, positionless defense that Kyle Hamilton loves to brag about.
Yeah, Kyle Hamilton certainly loves to brag. But speaking of Kyle Hamilton, I put a post on social media earlier this week saying that I believe Kyle Hamilton deserves some Defensive Player of the Year votes because he has been a menace. I know the votes usually goes to those with the most sacks or the most interceptions, but Kyle Hamilton's influence on his defense cannot be overstated. I think that he's been more, as more of an edge rusher than a safety, last couple of weeks. If they needed to be more of a linebacker, he can be that. If they needed to be more of a cornerback, he can be that. And you wouldn't miss a beat. In fact, you would get solid play from that side of the field wherever he is. What are our thoughts about Kyle Hamilton so far? At least, I don't want to say, overall in this game because he's been great, throughout, but where do we see this defense going if Kyle Hamilton continues to improve upon himself? Do you think that Kyle Hamilton is the catalyst for this pass rushing unit, or do you think that it's going to be up to the others? Draymond Jones, Mike Green, we mentioned it, maybe some more play out of Travis Jones, who's, been kind of silent here. Is it going to be up to Kyle Hamilton to get this pass rush going, or have you seen enough from Draymond and Mike Green to think that they may not need Kyle Hamilton as much in the pass rushing unit?
I mean, I hope it's based upon they don't need, because that means that, they're doing their job the right way, to be perfectly honest with you. And then, surprise, here comes Kyle Hamilton, which J.J. McCarthy is like, oh, I'm getting the ball out. Next thing you know, boom, the ball is being batted down. So that's where, you got Aiken, who is trying to get to the outside, but he can't get to the outside because Kyle Hamilton's there. You got, Kyle Hamilton getting back and covering guys, and now there's nowhere to go. So the Mike Greens of the world can pressure quarterbacks outside the pocket and make them make bad decisions. It's that I want to see from Kyle Hamilton. It's the batted balls that we want to see from Kyle Hamilton, not necessarily like, oh, Kyle Hamilton's on the line and he's coming off the edge, but I want to see all of it rather than just pigeonhole him. And I want to see others grow off of what he's been able to accomplish and do.
Yeah, I think the big thing for me with Kyle is, he absolutely is he's the guy that makes everything work for this Ravens defense. We've seen what this Ravens defense looks like when Kyle Hamilton is not out there, and luckily it hasn't really been all that often, but when we do see it, everything just seems to fall apart. So much of what they do is predicated on how many roles Kyle Hamilton can play. At the same time, I don't want it to come down to Kyle Hamilton, please save us, especially when it comes to crunch time or just big games every single time. So to your point, Sam, I think it's both. Look, Hamilton's going to have to be a guy that steps up throughout the season, makes big plays. He's done that. He'll continue to do that. I have all the confidence in the world in Kyle Hamilton. But it's also going to come down to the players around him, because much like we talk about Lamar Jackson on the offensive side of the ball, you can't just rely on Lamar to save you every single time you have to be saved. You can't do the same thing with Kyle on the defensive side of the ball either. Other guys have to step up, make plays. And look, we saw that today. With Marlon, the interception, Malachi, the interception, Roquan was flying around the field. Guys are making plays, and Hamilton had his fair share as well. But we saw that Teddy Buchanan was flying around the field. We saw Mike Green get some pressures. We talked about Travis Jones and, Draymond Jones, the whole 9 yards. That has happened, but we have also seen times, especially more so early in the season, where that didn't happen. Now, my hope is that it's more of, all right, that early season defense is behind us, like we saw last season with the Ravens. They had a little break, or they had a meeting, or they had whatever they needed to have, and all that's now out the
They had
window.
our
And this is,
Derrick Washington step up.
yeah,
Yeah.
and that you got new guys stepping up. So like this
Yeah.
to me, hopefully this is the Ravens defense. This is the version of the Ravens defense that we were waiting for. Where is it perfect? No, it's not perfect, but they are a lot better than what we saw early in the season. And I mean, look, after what we saw earlier in the season, it's all you can ask for.
Exactly. And you mentioned Malachi Starks coming into play. Second straight game with an interception. We talked about, what this Ravens team did in the draft, getting in, Malachi Starks, and there's other safeties out there that could have come in and performed admirably. I was still a Malachi Starks guy. Looks like my faith has been answered. We'll see what happens the next week against the Dylan Gabriel-led Browns. I think Dylan Gabriel might toss another one up. I would love another Malachi interception here. But let's talk about another DB, Chidobe Awuzie, because Jair Alexander got traded to the Eagles. I was upset about it a little bit just because of the what could have beens. But everyone said, okay, well, there's a reason why he didn't crack the lineup. There's a reason why he didn't get any playing time. And we're starting to see that Chidobe Awuzie has quietly, prior to this game, had a great season. In this game in particular, he showed out phenomenally, lined up a lot against Justin Jefferson. Sometimes he had Nate Wiggins against him, but a lot of those big-time plays that we saw on those stoppages was because Chidobe Awuzie was lined opposite him. Let's talk about Chidobe Awuzie, how he's been this season, and do you think this is a big reason why we didn't see as much Jair Alexander as many probably assumed we would?
Yeah, I think he is the guy that settles things opposite of Nate Wiggins. I think his veteran savvy, it gives him a lot of versatility. The receiving core for the Vikings, they are extremely talented, but you didn't have to double cover all of them. I like the way they played some single high, and anytime you're doing some single high, that means that you're going to have guys out on an island. He held up well. Anytime you get a robber cover where you're bringing down a safety and kind of shading the inside, you better have a guy that can, you could trust as far as taking away that outside throwing lane. So he has been very diligent and reliable with his coverage. And I think that is the reason why, you just don't need Jair Alexander. You have a guy that on film is showing up and doing his job and being effective. So don't sit there and figure you got to waste your, time and talent and get rid of the guy, get some more picks that hopefully you will trade up for, because Lord knows I'm going to throat punch somebody if they say the word compensatory pick again. There, I said it. Okay. Back to Awuzie. Yes, he has played phenomenal. And I think it's about him within the framework of the defense that his reliability, it gives Zach Orr that comfort to settle them down. And that's what you're looking for, and that's what you want.
Yeah, Awuzie has always been a really good player. The thing with him has been the injuries, and that, it has slowed him down over the course of his career. But I mean, he was that dude in Cincinnati. I mean, I remember Baltimore playing him multiple times a year and being like, all right, you got to watch out for Chidobe Awuzie. And then obviously, he was a big part of that Super Bowl team. And then the injury kind of he tore his ACL, I think, or, tore something up in his knee. And, that kind of did him in Cincinnati. Wasn't really able to recover. And Tennessee had an injury-plagued season. But when he's been healthy and on the field, he's really good. And I think it's the perfect role for him as like that third corner, because he's not like playing as much or as big of a role. And you're still getting like him on the field in these situations that are really good for him. And I think, look, he got cut by Tennessee, and I think all of us talked about this. It was before the squad show, but I think I talked with you both individually about it, where it's like he was cut by Tennessee. He's still getting paid by Tennessee, but he was able to come to a situation in Baltimore for a season to rebuild his value, play on a competitive team. It was a win-win situation for both sides. And honestly, I wish it had worked with Jair in that regard as well. But, Baltimore clearly trusts him. He's given them no reason not to. And I've been really impressed with him this season. I'm not sure he stays in Baltimore next season. I think he's probably going to get a deal to go elsewhere based off of his play this year. And, the Ravens might not be able to match based off the other extensions. But, If I were Baltimore, I'd be trying to say, hey, you want to sign a little extension now and get ahead of that now, because he's been one of the underrated unsung heroes of this defense for sure. I've been really impressed.
Super impressed by Chidobe Awuzie. We got some comments here from Primetime Sports saying Awuzie has been awesome this year. Even the advanced metrics agree. Yeah. I agree with that as well. And then he follows up with that DPI was awful, by the way. JJ bullied the ref into making that flag. And I agree with that too. I think that DPI was questionable at best.
It's funny because the one on the fourth down was more of a PI where Jefferson kind of got hooked.
Yeah,
as opposed to the one where it was just hand fighting between him and Awuzie. Yeah. So one was going to be called, and I guess the Ravens, they won the game anyway. So whatever.
They certainly did. Well, we're going to take a quick break. Before we do, want to again shout out Q. Happy belated birthday to Q. He's going to get out of here, but appreciate you for joining us here. Enjoy the rest of your day. Enjoy your birthday weekend. Got to include all those blessings that come with that, because every day is special, especially when you're making another year on this earth. So appreciate you, Q.
Appreciate you guys. Squad show, squad it up. We're going to get it. We're going to get it done.
Yes, sir. I love it. Okay, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk about where the Ravens stack up with the rest of the AFC, because there was a big-time loss here in the AFC with the Buffalo Bills getting beat up by the same team the Ravens thrashed just 10 days prior, and a lot of other teams will fall short of expectations. Can the Ravens use that to climb up the standings and potentially be a force come the P-word time, which Q said we won't mention until the Ravens get the dub against the Browns. We'll touch on it here next in the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium, surrounded by fans cheering on your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it is frustrating. That's why I use Gametime, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Gametime is fast, easy, and backed by the Gametime guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. I pulled up Gametime, and in just a couple of taps, I saw amazing deals. I'm talking about your favorite NFL games as low as $100. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets in the past. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go download Gametime today. We are back here at the Locked On Ravens Squad Show. Sam Njoku, Kevin Oestreicher joining us for what has been a phenomenal 3-game stretch for the Ravens. 3 straight wins. The Ravens are currently 4-5, closing in on a 500 mark. That means a 5 wins, 5 losses. Could happen against the Browns next week in Cleveland. Can't forget to mention that. It is in Cleveland, but we're here talking about this because the Ravens at 4-5, you can start talking about it. Where did they stack with the rest of the AFC? I'm going to pull up the standings here just to take a look real quick. The Bills certainly lost to the Dolphins, which is a huge momentum swing for the Ravens, in my opinion. The Browns lost to the Jets. Sorry, I couldn't keep a straight face as I mentioned that. The Browns, I think Justin Fields had under 60 yards passing total in that contest, and the Browns still
next 2 Ravens opponents.
And the next 2 Ravens opponents are the Browns and the Jets. So definitely a great time to be a Raven. Kevin, where do you think this team stands in the AFC? I know there are currently 3 8-2 teams in the AFC, the Colts being one of them. The Chiefs are not one of those teams. The Bills aren't one of those teams. The Steelers have a game against the Chargers today that could decide, in my opinion, the fate of the AFC North, at least in the near future, as the Ravens would be 1 game behind the Steelers if they were to fall to the Chargers. What are your thoughts about this Ravens team as it stacks up to the AFC?
Yeah, I mean, look, this is honestly, to me, what was so disappointing about the Ravens' slow start this season was that the AFC is so wide open this year. And I was like, look, if they're going to start this way, they have to win a bunch of games. And they're currently doing that. Or they have to keep it up. But it's a wide open AFC. So if you just make it into the playoffs, you are going to have a chance. I think the Ravens' biggest competition, honestly, is still Kansas City. Yeah, I think it's still Kansas City. And that's the team that lost to the Buffalo team, that lost to the Dolphins team, that lost to this Ravens team. I mean, it's a whole circle of lost to this team, lost to that team. You truly have a chance here if you're Baltimore. Is it the biggest chance in the world? No, it's not. But you still need to figure out your issues. But guess what? so does every other team. And some teams now, while the Ravens are patching up some of theirs, some teams are springing new leaks and are like, oh, we can't do this, or we can't do that, or this guy's injured, or all of a sudden we're bad at doing this. And so the Ravens have to continue their momentum, because truly, you look around and teams that have impressed early this season. I mean, Denver, they won, but it was an embarrassing effort for them offensively against the Raiders on Thursday night. The Chargers still have their question marks. The Chiefs are the Chiefs, and you got to respect the Chiefs, but that roster, and they're getting up there in age, experience is king, but at the end of the day, still have to execute with that experience, and we'll have to see how they perform. But I think that's still the Ravens' biggest competition. The Bills' defense is horrible, like absolutely horrible. The Steelers have their questions. I'm not worried about the Bengals. Seems like the two teams that like a lot of people are wondering about in the AFC are the teams that I think a lot of people have the most questions about. It's the Patriots and the Colts. Like, they're playing really great football, but if they make the playoffs, which is looking likely for both teams come playoff time, are Daniel Jones and Drake May going to be able to outduel some of these, quarterbacks who have been in the playoffs and have either, won Super Bowls like Mahomes, or who have made championship games like Allen and Lamar? Like, it's going to come down to those questions. So I think there's a really good chance for them. I think winning the division is still the path for them, especially if they drop one or two games, which, I'm not expecting them to go necessarily undefeated here. They could, but it's possible they drop one or two games, of course. But I think they stack up well.
I also agree with you. I think they stack up very well. Just to take a look at it, the Patriots and the Broncos, as you mentioned, both 8-2, both are riding a 7-game win streak. Broncos don't look that much impressive in that outing against the Raiders on Thursday night, but the Patriots have looked pretty decent. Of course, they have to still, fend off the Buffalo Bills, who, as we mentioned, has a terrible defense, looked terrible, and their loss to the Miami Dolphins, to the Ravens, pretty much trounced with little to no effort. 4 touchdown passes from Lamar in that day, but, the Bills found a way to lose against that. It's in the division, so not much to speak of there. Of course, you got the Colts. Danny Dimes, as you guys call him, has a 2-game lead in the AFC South. The Jaguars 5-4. The Ravens have the 5-3 Steelers ahead of them. As of this moment, the Ravens would not make the postseason, but you figure that to change, the winner of this division will go to the postseason. I don't believe there's any other team in the AFC North that will make the playoffs. Do you? Do you think this is a thing where the winner of the AFC North goes, and then the Steelers or whoever loses in this division, either the Bengals and Browns probably going to make it, but if the Steelers were to lose the division running against the Ravens, do you still see them making the playoffs, or vice versa? Or do you think the winner of this division goes and no one else?
Yeah, it's possible, but I would probably say my prediction now would be the winner of the North goes, and then 2 AFC East teams make it and 3 AFC West teams make it. I would probably say that's where I would go. It's still possible. It honestly might come down to like whoever loses the North and the Chargers for that last wild card spot. Like it could come down to that. So it's not out of the realm of possibility. I think 2 teams certainly could make it. I'm not counting the Bengals in this equation. I think they're done. They're fun offense, historically bad defense. So I think it'll probably come down to Ravens, Steelers, and Chargers. Whoever loses the North and the Chargers for that final wild card spot.
Yeah, man, it'd be crazy that the Ravens find a way to get to the postseason and not have to travel to Kansas City because the Broncos win the AFC West. Not have to travel to Buffalo because the Patriots win the AFC East. Those 2 teams could be traveling, at home to potentially the Ravens in the wild card round, something that you and I talked about on your show earlier. That'd be a fantastic turn of events. Of course, the Ravens will still need to show up and win. And we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. We weren't going to mention the playoffs until the Ravens got the job done against the Browns, but considering the Browns lost to the Jets.
Q's not here anymore. It's okay.
Q's not here. It's okay. Q won't hurt us too bad if we mention it, but something to think about as, again, the Ravens are fighting not only to climb up in the AFC North, but fighting to stave off some of the weaker teams in the AFC in general. Again, we have no idea who the top dog is in the AFC. We can assume that it's the Chiefs. I think I saw a comment here a little bit from Ali that said that it's going to be the Chiefs, and let's see if I can find it. There we go. Chiefs won't lose another game until the playoffs, says Ali. We all know this is coming, and then he mentioned if the Colts beat the Chiefs in 2 weeks, we can call them contenders. So that's where he's at with that, with the Colts, and he believes the Chiefs are the real deal, which is very hard to disagree with. And again, we saw what the Chiefs did to the Ravens. I'm sure Todd Monken, even though he gets a lot of criticism, will have something to to prevent whatever happened in that contest. Steve Spagnuolo called a masterful game on the defensive side of the ball. A lot of transitioning going on with the Ravens defense as well. So maybe not the game we'll see if those two teams meet again in the postseason, but I believe you, Kevin, the Chiefs are the team to beat. Is there a second team in the AFC before we close things out that you will be concerned with other than the Kansas City Chiefs?
I mean, I guess Buffalo because they lost to them last season, but I don't know. I mean, I feel pretty good that the Ravens could beat up on that defense considering what we've seen recently. I mean, look, it's Josh Allen. You could never, pencil in a win against Josh Allen. I think that's the big thing. Yeah. But I just don't think they have enough around Josh Allen right now. Even offensively, like James Cook is awesome, but, receiver-wise, they really don't have a lot that scares me there. Dalton Kincaid's had a nice year. Their offensive line is good, but I mean, I still think that if the Ravens can get back on track fully and make the postseason, the top three teams in the AFC would be the Bills, the Chiefs, and the Ravens in no particular order. So, the Ravens still have a long way to go. I mean, they truly do. Yeah, have issues. They have things they have to work on. They're not playing great teams right now, so we'll see how they stack up against, the AFC's elite teams. We'll see. But, right now they're doing what they're supposed to do, which is beating up on the bad and mediocre teams. Minnesota coming into this game was a mediocre to bad team. They have a lot of skill position talent. It's true. But, I think that, and I see Walter bringing up what I said during the watch along, that, you have the next three games because you have a really tough Patriots, Packers, and Steelers stretch to end your season. So you got to win as many games as you can in these next, I believe I said 6 games. I think it's Browns, Jets, Bengals, Steelers, 5 games. Yep. Yeah. So Browns, Jets, Bengals, Steelers, Bengals. In those next 5 games, you got to win as many of those as possible because come December 21st, you're going to have a really tough 3-game stretch. 2 of 3 are going to be on the road as well. So you have the Browns on the road, then you have a nice little 3-game homestand before you go to Cincinnati for that Thanksgiving. Or no, you don't. No. Cincinnati is the home game on Thanksgiving. Then you go back to Cincinnati to round out that 5-game stretch. So win as many of those games as you can. We'll give you a little bit of leeway if you do drop a game to a New England or a Green Bay. But I think, Sam, it could come down to that Week 18 Ravens Steelers at Acrisure for the division. Feels like it might be shaping up for something like that. I
might have to go to the game. I might have to have the squad show at Pittsburgh because how could I miss that? A chance to win the division in Pittsburgh, close out the chapter on Aaron Rodgers, make Steel City regret ever, being rivals for the Ravens. That'll be a nice little show that UQ and I can go to. We'll see. I mean, we got a long ways away to get to that. As you mentioned, the Ravens had to string off some wins against some pretty mediocre teams. We know the Vikings were a mediocre team because they gave, 9 false starts. That's 8 false starts, or was it 9? I can't remember.
I think it was 8.
It was 8 false starts. Okay, so I'm sorry, Vikings fandom. I didn't mean to say you got 9.
They were 1 false start away from paying honor to J.J. McCarthy's alter ego.
Exactly, number 9 himself. Oh, man. Crazy turn of events. But I know we all agree with Primetime Sports here when we say bolt up. Let's go Chargers. The Chargers and Steelers will be doing battle in a few hours now, a couple of hours. The Steelers and Chargers will get started, and hopefully the outcome of that game will tip the balance in terms of where we think the Ravens can go in this division and potentially in the postseason come February or January, I should say, because, they got to win in the playoffs to get to February, which is something that we've been clamoring for quite some time in the Lamar Jackson era. Again, I want to thank everybody so much for joining us here on the Locked On Ravens Squad Show, the post-game edition. Make sure you like and subscribe if you're watching live here on YouTube. If you're listening wherever you get your podcast, be sure to give us 5 stars, leave a comment. Let a friend know about the show because we are doing great things here in the Locked On franchise, Locked On podcast with Kevin Oestreicher 5 days a week, even on the weekends, depending on the news. You got you on it, especially the watch along, which I cannot believe you do because it is a very strenuous 4 hours.
I'm still sick. I've been sick for like a week, and I've sounds and stuffy on the mic. Sam knows we recorded our show on Thursday Friday, and I almost made it through, and then I had to. All right, I need a break. Only had to take 2 2-second cough breaks on the watch along. I'm very proud of myself. We're working through it. So yeah, it's the watch alongs are fun though. It's a fun little community that we have going on. We have a great, and it's so fun because we have the whole Locked On Ravens community, Sam. But we've built up a nice little squad show community here,
Yes,
right?
sir.
With that within, so it's communities within communities here on Locked On Ravens, which I love.
That's awesome. Yeah, appreciate everybody. People like Laura making sure you like and subscribe. I always see your comments
Appreciate
every
you, Laura.
episode, so don't think it goes unnoticed. Also mentioning Kevin is the man, so
I appreciate it.
it. Yeah,
Laura's the best.
It is not a joke.
Maya's
what we
awesome.
do
Thank
here.
you to Maya.
Yep, for sure. So, lots of community here, lots of, fandom. It feels good, especially if this 3-game streak.
Oh,
The
yeah.
vibes are high. It feels very different than it did at the end of October. So, making sure that we enjoy this because I'm sure there's many more victories to come. But regardless, we'll be here, Locked On Ravens, talking all about that Ravens victory, hopefully. We'll be back on Wednesday, getting you ready for that Cleveland Browns matchup. Last game of the season between these two teams, unless the Browns make it to the postseason, which is highly unlikely. But, the Browns can dream. The Browns fans can dream. Anyway, we'll be back here on Wednesday talking that. Until then, thank you guys so much and stay tuned for another episode on Wednesday of the Locked On Ravens Squad Show.